Welcome to another episode of Exit Philosophy with Mal Ramanan and Griff. And today we've got a lot to talk about leading into the winter meetings. But before we get into that stuff, how can they do the Four Nations roster for the NHL and make it so important on December the 4th? And it's not till February.
I don't understand any of that. Again, it's the old thing like MLB doing the awards and you know, one at a time trying to stay relevant. I think that they're just trying to get people to talk about something which is absurd because so much can change by the time the tournament comes around. And how do you do Four Nations? I mean, how can you have a hockey tournament without the Czechs or the Slovaks? Is my question.
Yeah, like they
What's the
get to stay
point?
home. You know somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody important is going to get hurt in the tournament, and their team is going to sort of put the nix on the idea of another one with the same format coming up. I mean, I can understand the Russians not being in it
Well,
because
that makes sense.
sort of,
They
yeah,
shouldn't be.
they're
Yeah.
persona non grata at this point and everything. But yeah, Four Nations and under God, indivisible or whatever it is.
Yeah.
The
Well, I
how
mean, and
about
more importantly, you name the team now. It's not somebody's going to suck between now
yeah,
and they're
I like
already on
the
the team.
I like the interviews with guys like McKinnon saying, "Oh, you're on the team. How does it feel?" No shit. Nathan
It
McKinnon
was a tough morning waiting for the announcement. Now, my boy didn't make it. Tage
was that.
Thompson. I just don't understand. I mean, I'm a little up in arms here. Come on. He was
Yeah,
leading the league in scoring when he got goal scoring when he got hurt. I mean,
yeah.
like that's what's going on around here. But
Well, in 4 more years, he'll be back. So
yeah, 4 more years.
now I need your opinion on the Rob Manfred golden at bat concept, where you can just put your best hitter into any situation late in a game or at a key moment in the game, and he can hit. So it seems sort of to go against the history and the dignity of the game of baseball. What's your idea on that?
It seems.
Just it
You
seems.
know, on second thought, maybe that's not a good idea. Um, Obviously, it's the most absurd thing you ever heard. I think the real failure is the fact that somehow this completely absurd idea got out in the public. I mean, there's no
He
chance of it.
did it.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like how embarrassing for you.
Yeah.
Like
It is.
that's how out of touch he is. Griff, I don't know what your opinion is, but I've had my experiences with Manfred at meetings and stuff, and it became so quickly apparent how sensitive he is and how much envy he has for the National Football League and the amount of tension it gets from the networks and dollars they get from the networks. And I think, again, it's trying to manufacture drama, which is, I think, a problem with all our sports. We tend, God forbid, if everything in our day and age has to be the greatest thing that ever happened, and it's never happened before, so we create it. We change the rules to create drama, and who wants fake drama? I mean, I guess people tend to like it. I don't know, but it's why we have more playoff teams. You know what I mean? It's why we
Yeah.
have timeouts in sports. They never used to exist. People don't know that.
Well, that's
Now we're gonna have a golden bat. I mean, just give the guy a golden helmet, a golden
yeah.
bat, just
Well,
fireworks.
since day one, when I was writing and then in PR with the Jays, I never liked Rob Manfred.
No,
Like
he's a lawyer.
everything he said about Canada, about Toronto, about the Blue Jays, about everything, and now and the rule changes, and now this is just ridiculous.
Well, I
It
can't tell you.
reminded me. It reminded me of the reentry rule that Coba has, Coba baseball, and I was managing, um, and so one time per game you can pinch hit for a guy and then have that same player re-enter the game. So I had this kid Nick Dalby, who was my second baseman. He's about 4'11" in major midget. So this is like 16, 17. He's 4'11",
Perfect second baseman.
batting seventh. Yeah, batting seventh in the order. First inning of the Coba Championship against Burlington. We load the bases and his spot's coming up. So I pinch hit for him in the first inning with the bases loaded. And
I'm sure his parents were there and were thrilled about that move.
Denver Carter was a pitcher, but he was an athlete. He was like 5'11" and he could slam dunk. So he always wanted to hit. So I said, Denver,
You
you're
can't
up.
be serious. You pinch
He
hit a pitcher.
he lined a double up the alley, cleared the bases, and I called time and pinch ran Nick Dalby for him at second base. But that's the ridiculousness of the suggestion of the golden at bat, you know? And
Another crafty victory for
oh
man.
yeah. How many
I've
people
seen many. I've seen many.
how many people do you think I pissed off with that move?
Well, I'll just lay a guess that you probably got thrown out later in the game at some point. I'm
No,
just
hell
an
no.
educated guess.
That may have been the same game where I had a second baseman with an infielder with a bad throwing arm, and we only had 9 guys there. So if a right-handed hitter came up, I moved him to second base. If a left-hand hitter came up, I moved him to third base. And I had parents on both sides yelling, "What the hell are you doing?" But
You're just
we
a
won.
thinker. You were always a thinker. There's no
We won.
question.
So enough about the commissioner. Juan Soto is still out there, and I was as we
Ah,
record on Thursday noon. Juan Soto's still out there, and they're saying it's down to 4 teams, and the Blue Jays are involved, the Mets, the Red Sox, and the Yankees. You've been following. What's your opinion on this whole situation?
wow. We've obviously talked about it a lot, and you still have to talk about it because it's in the news. Like the Blue Jays are right there, right? And to me, again, I just find it nonsensical. I just that like one, we've talked about it. You cannot make the case outside of your payroll to the same way you could for Otani. If you're going to go to Rogers and make a special case, the case isn't there. Like with Otani, there was so much you could generate additional revenue. You
Yeah.
can make a business case. Soto's just a baseball player. He's not from a unique market at this point where, baseball players from that market are here all the time. So,
Yeah, you're not making your money back on Soto on streaming rights in Santo Domingo like you would
no,
have in Tokyo
you're
and
just selling a few extra
yeah.
tickets, and that's not going to go pay for $600 million. The other issue, and you know, I know Ross referred to that, and certainly with Otani, they're talking about the deferrals and how that can be used for a team, obviously, to manipulate the tax a little bit, push things down the road. Which is a great strategy. The only problem is, why in God's name would Juan Soto agree to that? Like we all understand what Otani was doing and why he wanted to go where he did and how it could be advantageous. He's going to make $50 million not playing baseball. So it's not like, his little $2 million salary, push it down the road, help the team win. I don't think Juan Soto's that kind of guy, and why would he be? Like, why would he grant the Blue Jays a deferral on his salary? Maybe a minor amount of it, whatever it is, but it just so why wouldn't Soto say,
Yeah. Well,
I'll invest my money myself. Thank you very much. I want the cake. That's just he's
right.
made it very
And
clear he wants a lot of money. So
with the Otani deferrals by the Dodgers, part of the promise we're assuming is that they were going to use the rest of the money, the current money, to improve the roster so they could win the World Series.
correct.
And in the case of Blue Jay deferrals, I don't see that as part of the promise, is that if you defer money down the road, we will continue to add to this team to make it as good as possible. Because the Dodgers fulfilled on that promise, but there's been no indication that that
Well,
would be what and the other thing is, like, people are saying, well, $600 million for Soto when Otani only got 700 million. That's $100 million difference. It's like 14%. And they're saying that Soto doesn't deserve that money because he's not as good as Otani and Otani pitches. You're talking $100 million difference. That's not chump change, you know? That's a
it is not.
significant difference, but it's a significant difference that I don't think the Blue Jays are playing in that ballpark.
Again, you have to if you were successful in bringing him in, you'd have to get a special request a special outside of your payroll from corporate, which you know how that goes.
Mhm.
It's just not two guys deciding they want him. It's not Cohen and the Mets. You know what I mean? You have shareholders. Secondly, if you were going to do it, you'd need deferrals, and I don't see any avenue or any reason the player would want to do that because I'm guessing he doesn't need to. I'm going to guess the Mets aren't doing it on deferrals or the Red Sox or the Yankees. They're going to give him his money. That's, you know, so I don't see, there's just no way the Blue Jays are in on this. There's just no way. I mean, I'll eat my shorts. You know, I'll eat your shorts actually if that
So
it's just not going to happen, man.
I'm having trouble getting rid of that image, but the
It doesn't sound great.
the
That's how
relationship
sure I am, Rich.
the relationship with Scott Boras is important for Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro. And we were talking about it
Right.
beforehand, is it could be part of the reason why they are not, because we had that meeting with Ross Atkins the other day, and I pride myself on being able to read between the lines of general managers and what they're saying and team presidents. And there was no between the lines that told me that Ross Atkins was suppressing his glee in being front and center and likely to sign Juan Soto. There was no indication there. But describe how it could help the relationship with Scott Boras.
Well, I think there's a couple things there. Right. I think clearly, as we stated before, the Jays, when they went to visit Boris, should be more interested in all his other clients, and hence the reason to go. I mean, are you going to ask how it's going with Soto and what the deal is and, just check in on it? Of course. So if they allow themselves to be, mentioned in the conversation as a Final Four, that certainly doesn't hurt Boris's case with the people who are actually going to pay the money. There's nothing wrong with, and Scott, he's going to up the ante with as much as he can to get as much money as he can, as he should. So any agent, the more the more demand for the product, you know what I mean? Usually the higher the price goes. So I can see why the Jays are not going to comment. And the second thing is, it doesn't hurt their persona to be mentioned. Why, there's nothing, it sounds good when you're in on the big players. It sounds good. But I mean, you got to get some big players eventually, or
So
it turns.
the Jays are like the Boise State of the Final Four. They're going to qualify for that tournament because they've played a weaker schedule
Yeah,
and
SMU. Yeah.
yeah. Um, I skipped over this, but I wanted to ask you about it because we're here in the Golden Triangle. You're on the other side of the bridge past Hamilton.
I've been on the other side of the bridge for a long time, Rich.
But we don't get the snow that they got at Bill's Stadium. And that was a fun game to watch. And that's your team. That's your boys.
Neither does Buffalo get the snow.
Yeah, that's
Buffalo doesn't even get the
yeah,
snow they get at the stadium.
Southern
So
town.
yeah, just outside of that, a quick note. That's why it's so absurd that they're building the stadium beside the old
Well,
stadium. I
that
mean,
was that was going to
come
be
on.
my question. It's exactly my question because they have that home field advantage and it works more often than not for that team and the roster the way they're built. Do you think that's a big part of why they're building an outdoor stadium also at
Absolutely
Orchard Park?
not. Absolutely not. There's one reason. It's called cash. Like they're already so far over budget and overrun that the owners had to sell 25% of his team. To generate enough money to build the stadium. They kept it there because of the county, the amount they had to get through politically. There was only so much blood out of the stone, so to speak. So that's why it's there. It needed to be downtown. It revitalize it. They
Yeah.
needed to find a way. So I imagine building a new stadium and putting it right in the heart of the snowbelt again. You know what I mean? Like that's the worst spot. Though that area, like again, that Buffalo had no snow that day,
It sounds similar to Mayor Jean Drapeau and Stade Olympique when they built for the 76 Olympics
right?
and he built it way out in the East
Way the
End.
hell out there.
And everyone on city council got a new cottage built for themselves in the townships or up north. on the dime, on the taxpayer's dime, because that was the way business was done. So
That's
yeah,
right. Yeah,
uh,
I'll take note of that if I ever need anything from a city.
when you look at it that way, yeah, if you ever need anything from the
Yeah.
city. Okay, winter meetings coming up. Can you describe for us what the process is? So everybody gets in on the weekend, but and the Rule 5 this week, it's been shortened up because it used to be there was a trade deadline on Friday at midnight, and that was
Right.
always fun to watch teams on Friday sort of get together. In Toronto, when the winter meetings were there, Donald Davidson, who was the, can I say midget? No, I can't. Who was a
He's just
small
dead.
person.
I don't know what the what
And he was a
I'll let
traveling
you handle this
he was a
one.
traveling secretary of
Right.
the
That's what he was, right?
parade.
The traveling secretary.
Yeah.
Enough said.
But he was standing in the bar at the Sheraton, and two GMs were at the bar, and he was holding his pocket watch up, which on him looked like Flava Flav. But,
This is just
and
going.
at midnight, he waved his arm and said it was over. It's over.
It's over, baby.
Anyway, so they don't have that deadline anymore. So describe what Sunday,
No travel secretaries like that either. So
right? Sunday to Wednesday looks like right now. And I know that MLB tries to use this as a showcase to keep MLB in the news, but describe it.
well, but that's what it is now. Like I'll be honest, the winter meetings are perhaps one of my favorite events of the year. I mean, back in your day, Griff, business got done there. Like deals were
Yeah.
made, announcements were made that you were set up to go through a run of signings, trades, things like that because, we had those big boxes under our desk and the phones attached to our the through the wall back in the day and now you don't need it. So it's an infomercial for the game and it's a bit of a celebration. And to me, that's keeping your game in the news. You bring everybody together, and it does spur on conversations, and those things do happen. They just don't necessarily happen at the meetings anymore. So what will happen is everybody meets. Like we would have two days of PR meetings where you come together, talk about the issues, share best practices, kind of decide on how you're going to move forward as a league. The trainers are doing their things, the general managers have their meetings, but it's serious. Every team has a suite, and every key person is there from your team, and you really are strategizing. You are going up and down your organization. You are taking meetings with other teams. Business is getting done. It just doesn't necessarily conclude at that time like it used to because you had to get stuff done because that's how it used to be. But now you can get it done anytime. But a lot happens there. A
Yeah.
lot happens there, and media's all there to talk about the game, and it's just great when people get together. You
Yeah.
force people
Well,
get together,
again,
shit
right.
happens.
But getting together is the key, and you pointed out the preponderance now of cell phones and Zoom calls and FaceTimes and whatever. And it used to be that because I remember in '93 at the winter meetings in Atlanta, the Marriott Marquis has a huge atrium, and every room is facing inside. And so all the writers would gather down in the lobby and have
Right,
their heads up like they were bird watching, and they just watch for groups of teams going to their team suite. And
100%.
you had to go for a face-to-face meeting, and that was why the winter meetings were so key. But now you don't need to do that. So it's
Well, I
changed.
can't tell you
The
how many
bar at night was big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas. But
we
there
were there.
Oh yeah.
I
There
I recall
the
those nights.
yeah, right. But you could see who was talking and the seeds of deals were planted at many a bar at the winter meetings. And then the next
Oh,
day you would see a follow-up and but just keeping your eyes open and being down watching all that action happen. And that was part of the charm of the winter meetings. And I hate to say that it's not there anymore, but the fact that they've shortened it from Monday morning to the Rule 5 on
right,
Wednesday morning,
right.
sort of,
It used to be a full week.
yeah.
Like it really did. Right. And
But
and yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
I have some winter meetings memories through the years. I'll just talk about a few of them, but I went through the history of the winter meetings and they came to mind. 78 in Orlando was my first winter meetings.
Wow. Really?
I met the breakfast server and I invited her to go to Disney World with me, and then they traded for Bill Lee just as I was going to the car, and I
What
that was
what
the
could
end.
have been? What could have been?
That was the end of the relationship. But Bill Lee, Spaceman, was great in his time
You
with.
must have really enjoyed Billy, I'm gonna guess.
Yeah, yeah, he was a
Was he a
kindred spirit. I'm going to have him on a conversation, on a Griff's conversation, maybe early in the new year. It'll be
that
great.
would be fantastic. Fantastic.
Then 79 was in Toronto,
Was
and I
it?
talked to her
Where?
at the Sheraton up on,
Sheraton?
yeah.
Yep. Okay.
And so it was an
My first
underground
job was at the Sheraton.
because none of those southern state GMs and executives had winter jackets. So it was all held
Or
underground.
passports.
Yeah, or passports. 1980 was truly eventful. That was
Where was it?
in Dallas,
Dallas?
where they're having the meetings right now.
Right?
And
Love Dallas.
first night of the meetings, I was in a schooner bar in the lobby of the Anatole, and I asked Debbie to marry me. So
Wow.
yeah. And then we
Wow.
went to dinner. We went to dinner the next night. Mike Farber was in our cab, the great writer with the Gazette,
Yeah. Wow.
and they were playing Beatle music in the cab. And we said, "What's up with that?" And he said, "Well, John Lennon was just shot."
Holy smokes.
Yeah, and then we went to a
Wow.
restaurant. Yeah, that was
You're not
December.
going to forget that night.
No,
Wow.
in fact, coming back and in my mind, it's the winter meetings I remember for one big disaster and John Lennon being shot. No, kids, that's a joke. All right.
Your wife doesn't listen to this, does she?
Hopefully not.
Is your wife a subscriber, Griff?
No,
No.
I feel safe.
Oh my God.
So 1982 was in Hawaii.
Yeah,
First time I'd ever
that
been
was
to.
a big moment for you. So
Yeah,
82 is what?
82 was in Hawaii. Big moments for me were running to the top of Diamond Head at 7 in the morning and having John McHale, who thought I was a party guy, be impressed that I had run to the top of Diamond Head. But I was with Ed Wade, who was a real runner. He was at the time, Phillies PR, and
Right.
then became GM of the
Sure
Astros.
did. Sure
But he
did.
was a real runner. So I got tired and I stopped for a coffee at a coffee shop and I picked him up coming back down from Diamond Head. So we got back to the hotel. I was sweating bullets at 7:30 in the morning. And the GM, John McHale, was very impressed. So
So it's
that,
like the guy who sneaks into the last mile of the Boston Marathon, pretends
yeah,
he
that's it.
won.
Rosie Ruiz. I was the Rosie Ruiz of Honolulu.
PR guys. I
And,
like your thinking though, Griff.
and also at that meeting, I had two presentations to make, one slightly more important than the other. The first one was on the miracle of the fax machine and
Really?
how it was going to turn around our industry. So that was the first one. The second one was on don't be laughing at Tim Raines and the Expos because that cocaine issue is going to be an
Statewide?
epidemic. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was right about this. So that was like December of 82, and Rains's problem was during the 82 season. He had a great 81, obviously, a great 81 season on the strike shortened year. Then he went home and he fell in with the wrong crowd, came back in 82 and was hooked, and then went to rehab in
Yeah.
December of 82 in Orange, California. And when he came to spring training, Andre Dawson took him under his wing and it was never a problem. And I hate when people talk about it as if it was a career long
Oh
issue.
my God. Right.
Yeah, so that's the story there. And then of course there's the drug. It was all over baseball,
Yeah.
preponderance during the early 80s. But for Reigns, it was he deserved, and people are going, well, why is he
And
in?
what a good dude too.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
sorry, like Tim.
yeah. So I just
Oh,
wanted to clear that up.
the only memory like this, I don't have quite the. I didn't fake run anywhere. I actually ran, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, not anymore, but I was doing that. I remember in our meetings making a big statement and plea, trying to tell everybody how absurd it was that we still print media guides and trying to convince the room that we got to stop this practice. They looked at me like I had four heads. I'm just like, I, I knew I would be right, but I mean,
Well,
you're wasting
yeah.
money on stuff you throw in a cabinet and it's already out of date. It just, people
But
don't like change, Griff. They don't like change.
no, me and Bob Elliott appreciate your confreres.
Oh, I
Try
know.
to keep the hard copy because
No, it was
Bob
your
and I
security blanket.
yeah,
Security
yeah.
blanket. I know.
And granted, you can keep turning the pages because these guys are no longer here, no longer here, no longer here, and then you find your guy. But I got a basement full of
Oh, I know you
media
do.
guys.
Yeah, I know you do. And they're going to remain there untouched.
Well, that's right. One last winter meetings, and it's when I was a writer. I joined the Star in '95, went to the winter meetings, went to everyone till Las Vegas or San Diego when Paul Beeston was surprised that he was losing his job to Mark Shapiro. He
Wow,
hadn't
what a
heard
time
about it
that
yet.
was.
Yeah.
What a time that was.
So the '04 meetings in Anaheim, the greatest, as a writer, the greatest scouting report, most succinct, beautiful scouting report ever. Bobby Maddock had gone to there was a Japanese pitcher who was going to work out at Fullerton and invited all the teams to send reps to go out and watch this kid throw. He was like mid-20s, played in Japan, but it was an opportunity. So Bobby Maddock went out and he came back. I saw him in the lobby and I said, "Bobby, how is that kid?" And he looked at me and went, "Shit, I was looking for somebody to give me a bat."
That good was he?
That's
That's
all I
sweet.
needed.
Bobby Maddox. Let me in there. I assume the kid never signed anywhere. Is that?
No, did not. No.
Yeah.
Um, Back into Ross Atkins and his BBWA availability. Um, just I was there, recorded it, wrote about it in my mailbag, which is available on griffsapitch.com. Um, but just your opinion on some of the topics that he talked about. For instance, the Romano situation and
Yeah.
not tendering him a contract, but then saying that he doesn't think there's a physical issue that's going to stand in the way.
That's the thing that stood out to me. And we talked about this before. I totally understand why you might not offer Romano his, $9 million and obviously trying to get it for a little less. Like I said, they have the medicals, they see everything. So, my thought on that was it probably made sense not to guarantee him the money because you just weren't sure about the arm. And when Ross said they had no concerns about his health, I think that really stood out. I'm kind of surprised. It tells me the relationship is soured. They obviously tried to get him for less than 9 million, which fair enough. They can offer him what 6.2, something like that. That's the max you can cut it, I
Right.
think.
Yeah. It would have been down to 6.25. Yes.
So they clearly tried to do that, I'm guessing, and Jordan wasn't too thrilled about that. But as we talked about with the bullpen, if Jordan Romano's healthy, that's exactly what they're looking for. They need Jordan Romanos. Like they don't have any. They're trying to acquire those guys. So to me, that's what stood out, and I'm a little surprised. I mean, let's see how it plays out, and let's see what the market is for Jordan. But I'm just it just tells me that obviously the
Yeah.
relationship is soured for some reason.
I think that that's an important aspect of it, the relationship between general manager and player. And it brings me back to JP Ricciardi and Chris Carpenter when Carpenter missed or he got hurt in '02, had surgery in July, and was going to miss most of the '03 season. And the Jays sort of tried to, give him a minor league deal for '03 and it didn't work out. And the general manager and the player need to be on the same page and need to have that mutual feeling of, hey, you will be back. So it didn't happen with Carpenter. He went to the Cardinals. They rehabbed him for that 1 year, and then he came back and won a Cy Young and became a key playoff pitcher
It's one of the
for
best
St.
pitchers in the
Louis.
game, like a true
And
ace.
like, I'm just wondering if, and I'm hoping that Ross Atkins and Romano's people sat down before this whole thing went down with the non-tender and said, okay, we're still interested. We'll see where you are. But the thing is, he's going to need a place to work out and rehab, and that would be the PDC. But if he's a free agent, it's not going to happen.
No,
So
and
they're
and
going to need to do that prior to spring training or at spring training, just so that he can be under their supervision if they have plans for him. And it sounded surprisingly like Ross Atkins was saying that they do have plans and they have hopes that he will rejoin the team. I'm not so sure what your opinion of listening to the same thing was.
to me, it sounds like the relationship's fractured. If you want to, of course they have interest. Of course, why wouldn't you? I think you say that. It just doesn't sound like they're in a good spot. Hey, maybe it can change. And again, a lot changes depending on, what else is out there. Kevin Kiermaier had no intention of ever coming back to Toronto, but when nobody else offered him $10 million, he came back to Toronto. You know what I mean? So things can change, that's for sure. But man, it wouldn't be a good look if Romano signs elsewhere and is pitching pretty well. Like that, you for a lot of reasons, and they just go beyond the talent. I mean, he's a Toronto boy. Like, I mean, there's just an added layer of, kind of to the story. So it wouldn't be a good look if he's pitching elsewhere and pitching really effectively and he was your property. But let's see. I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully they can find
Well,
an agreement and he comes back.
hopefully, because there's no reason that that relationship should be fractured, because
Should be
Romano
none.
was a warrior the time that he was here, and they used him in the marketing and they used him and it was a really good relationship. So it would
Seems
be a
like it.
shame to see it end like that.
And they need more Jordan
Yeah.
Romanos. That's the one thing they really need. So
But I asked Ross at that meeting about his bullpen and the fact that there's 100+ free agent relievers on the market right now. And to me, it seems like that means that you can wait and fill like 3 or 4 of those middle relief spots in January and February as spring training approaches and the prices go down. But they still, to me, they still need a back end eighth and ninth inning guy that would replace Romano. And even if he signs, it's not going to be available right away. What's your thought on like who they need to sign, what they need to sign, whether it's a high end guy?
well, like you said, they can wait and they will wait, and you can shop. The bargain bin's going to be full of pretty good relievers when you wait. However, you got to go and get ahead of it and get yourself a couple guys to stabilize the bullpen. You have to have what you feel are surer things than, when you're shopping at the end, seeing what sticks, even if you like it. They got to get ahead of it and go get a couple of decent arms that you feel are really going to be, your anchors, your eighth and ninth inning guys. You just have to go get it. And when you mentioned how many games Schneider felt they lost with the bullpen last year, 10 games, you just got to shore it up. You got to
Yeah.
go get, you know, just don't go get Bill Cottle.
Very, very good.
Somebody who's a little more healthier than that, that type of thing.
But I mean, I think, and I also asked Ross, what did you learn between 23 and 24 with your bullpen, returning a bunch of the same names, bunch of the same guys, but your bullpen was really good in 23,
Right.
not so good in
One apart,
24.
one apart.
And his answer is insignificant except to the fact that they need to have learned something. And that something to me would be the addition of 2 outside eighth and ninth inning guys. And even if Romano has signs and has a chance later to earn high leverage again, proving that he's healthy, it doesn't hurt to have 2 more guys that can do the same job.
If you don't go get them, you're not like you're shooting yourself in the foot. You can do a lot of other things, but if you can't shore up the back end of the bullpen, you're still going to be throwing games away. It's just how it goes. So they've got to get out and get ahead of it, in my opinion, and anchor that bullpen quick. And then you can wait. And then you can wait because there's a lot of supply this year. And always is generally in the bullpen market.
All right, it's time for exit philosophy top five lists. We had one last week.
Need some music for this.
Yeah, we need some music. We'll
Yeah,
figure
we
it.
need some
Yeah.
sort of countdown or whatever.
So Mal, I'll let you go first. Top five ballparks, and it's a personal list in terms of not just the stadium itself, but working conditions for you, for me, for writers, fan comfort, access, everything that goes into a favorite ballpark. So we'll go top five. You can start, do your five, start with number five, count down to number one. Let's go.
Okay. For me, number five is Camden Yards. Um, I absolutely love everything about the ballpark except where it is. You know, uh, there's not many. You got to be careful which way you turn in Baltimore. Uh, that's a thing. But I still think to this day, it's as beautiful a ballpark as you're going to find. Um, the working conditions are great. The press box is a tremendous view. The fans are right with you. Like you have conversations with the fans. Um,
And often do.
and often do whether you like it or not. You know what I mean? It's just such a tremendous place to work and to enjoy in a summer night there. I love everything about Camden Yards, and I mean the clubhouse isn't the best, but it's a little it's not it's okay. It's functional. Um, it is what it is. It's not there because of the clubhouse, but just working in the press box and there's just the aesthetics of the park.
Yeah.
I love it. Kind of got overlooked with all the new ballparks,
Yeah.
so it still holds up, is what I'm saying. It holds up so well today. So
Yeah.
that's
It
my
was
number five.
the second new ballpark after Skydome, right? I mean, the one in Chicago was just a redo of Comiskey Park, and
And
then
it was the first kind of character
yes, it was the
style.
first retro stadium, and it
Yeah,
still has that feel, and it's still one of the best.
it is. It is. Number four for me would probably be Target Field, Minnesota. I don't know how many lists that's going to make. Excuse me. Um, I love where it is in the city. I have a sneaky love of Minnesota. I think it has a real Canadian feel, the city,
And
Minnesota.
and
It just
Vikings, they got a lot of big bone blondes.
big hardy individuals there in Minnesota. But it is again a beautiful ballpark. Um, Great working conditions. The way it's one of the things where I always sneak in. This is just a personal anecdote. The PR offices are underground next to the clubhouse. I don't know if I've ever seen that. You know what I mean? It's like, so somebody was really thinking right next to the elevator and right next to the food room, which I mean, for me, just checked all those boxes right off the top. You know what I mean? So it was all there. But that's the one thing we always struggled with in Toronto and every other park. The PR offices are with, the admin offices, the GM offices when you need to be in the clubhouse all the time. So
Yeah.
I always loved that they were down there. I thought it was so unique, and I just think it's a gorgeous ballpark. And if people ever get the chance to go to Minnesota, it's just it's one of those sneaky great towns that you don't expect much from, and then you walk out there and there's so much to do. And I
Yeah.
just I just love it. I love it there.
The bar where they
And the
shot
weather.
Purple Rain is right across the street from the ballpark. That's where I stop in on the way back to the hotels. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
start humming Purple Rain.
rain dance of Griff zone. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, I'm sure.
I love to party like it's 1999, you know?
So do I, but unfortunately for us, Griff,
Yeah.
yeah, here we are.
Yeah. So that was number four.
Number three is going to surprise a lot of people. And this was always my favorite pure baseball park to be in is Cleveland. I love it there. I love the park itself. I could do without going to Cleveland a lot, even though I mean I managed to find great spots there too. There's a particular street there. Is it Fourth Street? Is that what they call it? I forget now. It's been so long. Fourth or
Uh,
fifth.
just across from the basketball arena,
It's
kitty
a
corner.
wonderful spot.
Yeah,
A wonderful spot. The park, just purely on the park. I love the design of it. I love the feel. I love that big wall in left field. I love how everybody's on top of the game. Um, I just truly love being in the ballpark.
yeah. I think the Jays stole that open standing area where fans can just gather
I wonder
and
where they got that from.
yeah. Well, they got
Is it,
that.
and it's great.
To me, that was a part of the appeal of the Cleveland ballpark, and Seattle is on my list. I'll get to my list, but just those areas, and now they're in Rogers Center, and it really creates a party atmosphere, and that was one of the things. Cleveland is also on my list, so go
Oh,
ahead.
really, really. Well, I'll tell you what's not on my list is Seattle, strangely enough. I thought about it a lot, and I just, I don't know. The ballpark for me didn't make the list, but I mean, I get it if it's on yours. Um, Second on my list is San Francisco. I mean, wow. Uh, Everything about it. That press box is also the same. You're on top of everything. It's right there. Access to the clubhouses are great. The view is just off of the charts. Usually the weather's kind of decent too when you go there. And the
Yeah.
fact of where it is now, I love the location of it. We obviously didn't go there a lot, National League Park, but when you went there, you were in awe of everything. And it was just, to me, I don't know if it made your list, but San Francisco is just, they did everything right with that ballpark, as far as I'm concerned. That's just a place you got to go to. I mean, they've got their own problems there right now, San Francisco, but what a ballpark.
That might be higher on your list because it's like going with a homely guy to the dance, and that homely guy is in Oakland, that ballpark. You know, your comparison is that.
It's a low bar. There's a, you look a lot prettier.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And number one for me, I'm probably not going to surprise anybody. Well, maybe it will. Um, Wrigley Field. I mean, that's to me the mecca of it. Like, I mean, it just brings you back. I love having to walk above and through the crowd to get to the clubhouse. Um, the park, it goes without saying, but just the environment around the ballpark. I mean, the fact that you could just party 6 hours before and party 6 hours after, and it's just baseball. Everything about it is just off the charts. It's how baseball's supposed to be done. And the throwback park that is unlike Fenway, it's a great place to work, Wrigley. Fenway is not a great place to work on any level. It just isn't. It's a great place as a fan, but for working conditions. So to me, Wrigley Field is just that's just how baseball is done, period. So that was number one on my list. Um, I'll let you do your list. I actually had a couple extras as honorable mentions and a couple worst ones too.
Well, that's good. We can get to that. I'll do my top five, and I'm gonna because I spent a lot of time in probably over 20 years in each league. I'm
Yep.
going top six.
Okay.
So number
Three
six.
each. If anything, you're always fair, Griff. Equal opportunity, Griff.
Number six on my list is Progressive Field, Jacobs Field, whatever you want to call it in
Really
Cleveland.
good. I'm glad.
And I just love the access. Maybe I'm because it's another one of those cities where when the Blue Jays are playing, the fans
Yep.
swarm down there, and that's part of the ambiance that
Hmm.
create an atmosphere for me anyway.
For
Um,
sure.
in terms of, and then you described the ballpark and how great it is, how clean it is. And to me, the access up and down from the press box to the clubhouse, and then getting to the field and just sitting in the dugout watching BP and watching that. It's a well constructed, well thought out ballpark, and I love
Great
it.
ballpark. Yep.
Number five for me is now called Oracle Park in San Francisco.
Okay.
I think Oracle is lucked out because they used to call it Oracle Park across in Oakland. So I think they ended up with the
They also ended up with the pretty girl.
ballpark. But just being able to watch McCovey Cove from the press box because it's high enough you can see the kayakers out there and the ships in the bay and just the ballpark itself. And The weather, well, I've been there for every World Series, so the weather is not quite as good as you were describing, but
Fair enough.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful. So I would sit in I would have lunch halfway down the hill, and when the team bus went by at the World Series, I would say, "Oh, it's time to go," and I'd go and I'd go to the ballpark. But my favorite moment from one of those World Series was uh, early morning on a day game. I think it must have been a Sunday. I must have been a playoff game or a league championship game. And Barry Bonds, who is in the height of his disgrace, is wandering ahead of me down the tunnel. And it just seemed so fitting that he got to the clubhouse door. It was 8 in the morning, and he's opens the handle and it won't open. And then he jiggles it a little more, and he's pounding on the door. And to me, that was just so representative. Barry Bonds pounding on the door, trying
Let
to
me in. Yeah.
Giants clubhouse
Still doing it. He's
during a
still doing it.
postseason game. Let's see who else I got. So that was number 5. Number 4 is T-Mobile Park, which used to be Safeco in Seattle, and
Yeah.
I think part of
I get
that
it.
is I think Scotty Mack and I did a few podcasts from in the outfield when there was nobody in the ballpark, and it's beautiful out there. I did a column. I went and drank in the outfield area and wrote a column about it because, there's no use trying to make deadline on a 7 o'clock, 10 o'clock Eastern start. So I just wrote it the next day. That's
I
all.
drank in the outfield too, but I wasn't writing a column.
Oh, okay. And just you can walk to the ballpark, and the walk is
Yes, you can.
great.
Well, going home is not so good sometimes.
Yeah,
It's
because it's
uphill.
uphill. It's all uphill from here. So that's number 4. Number 3 is for me PNC Park in Pittsburgh.
I felt dirty not mentioning it.
Yeah,
it is
and I know
something.
it's very popular, but
Yeah.
I just, the press box is too high.
Yep.
But just the clubhouse area, the area around it, they've done such a good job because Three Rivers Stadium was not a great ballpark,
And
but
speaking of
this is a great ballpark.
speaking of sneaky cities, Pittsburgh.
Yeah, yeah,
You know what? They've done what Buffalo needed to do with that city for
right.
coming out of the steel town
Yeah,
and how it's a beautiful city. Like it's just there's so much fun in Pittsburgh. So yeah, I felt bad not mentioning it, but I'm
yeah.
glad you did.
The first time as a writer that I went down to that ballpark, um, I had a room at the Marriott right across the street, and I left the light on in my room and the curtains open so I could check out my room from the press box, which it was possible. It was great. I could see if anyone was rifling through my stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you
Yeah.
know, when it got cleaned.
Yeah, I knew it had got cleaned. And the other thing about Pittsburgh was that I took my daughter down for the All-Star game in my thing. She was 19 at the time, so I told her to get fake ID, otherwise I wasn't going with her. That earned me Father of the Year right there.
Yeah, sure did.
And that's
Sure
where she
did.
fell in love with baseball. She went to the All-Star game and sat in the upper deck as far away as you could get. And Kelly called me on deadline, like the game was just ending, and she said, "Dad, I love baseball." And
Really?
that made it for me, So
Oh, what a
Pittsburgh had to
moment,
be on
right?
my list. That ballpark had to be on my list.
For sure. That's a great moment.
Number 2, Wrigley Field, for all the reasons you said. I
Yep.
think in particular, uh, you can go after a Cubs loss
Yes,
to any
correct.
one of the establishments around the ballpark, and you wouldn't know whether the Cubs had won or lost because they're there for the baseball, they're there for a good time, and that is the essence of the game.
It is.
There's
How
no
you do it.
angsting and drinking to forget. It's drinking
So,
while
so
you remember.
it's the opposite of the golden bat. It's just baseball. And seriously, this is the
I
lesson
know it.
Manfred needs to learn. Let baseball be baseball. And
Yeah.
that's where it's baseball right there. Just let it be itself. You know what I mean?
Um,
Beautiful spot. Beautiful spot on earth,
yeah.
Wrigley.
And bringing up the golden at bat with Wrigley Field, you can't get as far apart as those two concepts. And
That's what Harry Carey would say.
oh God, look at the hair on that one, he said of Oscar Gamble.
That's right. Those we miss those days, the old Harry Carey, Phil Rizzuto days. I mean, we were missing that entertainment.
So number one for me is, and you mentioned it, I think you had it number five, is Camden Yards. I love Camden Yards. Camden Yards, I was
Yeah,
there for the Ripken moment. I was there for some playoff series. I was there for a lot of big moments. I love the fact that the press box in the working area is right almost in the crowd. And
yeah,
I've never seen a fan base with more women into the game, more women who love
yeah.
baseball and are just, you can tell because you're so close, you're in the fans, you're among the fans. And I think that the diversity that they have at that ballpark is
Was
unequal.
was Camden Yards the first female grounds crew chief? Was
Um,
she the first?
what was that? Kansas City?
Well, it's definitely Baltimore, but I didn't know if she was first or not.
Yeah, I don't know.
Um, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
which
no,
was
that's right.
also awesome.
She got mad when the Jays were celebrating and smoking cigars on the mound in 2015. She got
I,
really,
I recall I was there.
yeah,
Yes, she was not happy at all. I
no,
mean,
not happy.
you know, people are when you take care of grass for a living, you get very, very sensitive when people are disrespecting it. It's
You
just a
said
thing.
you said you had a couple others and then a undesirable.
Yeah, like I've got three that that to me are just honorable mentions here, and I think you're gonna laugh at these. You probably agree with. I mean, for me, just as just a personal note, I'll never forget the day I walked into the dugout at Old Yankee Stadium, growing up a diehard Yankee fan and getting that from my father. And the first time I was there in 2006, I called my dad from the dugout just to tell him where I was, and it was we had a moment that still kind of tears me up a little bit. That ballpark was just legendary, and boy, did the new one just not even close.
Yeah.
Like they tried and it feels like a replica. You know what I mean? Not a
Yeah.
ballpark. Boy, that stadium had everything. It oozed it. It came out of the walls. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, I have to mention it just because. And the other two are perhaps two of the most hated ballparks. One, and I love them just for the same reasons. One's the Trop, and one was the Metrodome. And the parks are awful. The view, but the working conditions were great. The view from the press box was great. The park was so lit up, like you felt, it wasn't dark. I loved working there. Now, you know, the view from the press box was great. Now, the view when you got there wasn't so great. Plastic garbage bag in right field, you know what I mean? It's like how people feel when they get to see me up close. It's a good view, but it's not one that's desirable. You know what I mean? So, but I loved working in those parks just solely to work in.
Yeah.
That's it. Like I'm not trying to tell you that the parks stink as far for
Yeah.
baseball, but really
Yeah.
enjoyed working in those places.
I agree 100% with you on the old Yankee Stadium and the new Yankee Stadium. And I remember the first time that I went down, it might have been 78 when I first volunteered for the postseason and went to a World Series at Yankee Stadium. And I made sure after I had finished my pregame that I went down and I walked in the concourse and went into one of the alleyways, walked up the little slope, and I got hit by the lights coming down and the grass and the history and I'm just like you. I mean, it was like very emotional moment
Dude,
just
Mickey Mantle played
standing
there. You know what I mean? Like it's
speaking of which, I rode the train after a Jays game in Baltimore to see David Cohn's comeback after he had the issue. David Cohn was making his re-debut with the Yankees, so I went to that game. But in the press box in at Camden Yards, I believe I had bad crab cake, and I was throwing up all the way to on the train
you do not want bad crab cake.
to
No.
Yankee Stadium. So I was like 90 degrees, and I'm in the subway going to take the train to the Bronx, and I'm
Image.
sweating bullets. And I get to Yankee Stadium, and I go down in the tunnel where the old press room was,
Yeah.
go in the back. And I'm throwing up in this toilet, and it struck me that Babe Ruth probably did the same thing back in the day, you know? And that was a key moment in my baseball life.
Right.
Me and Babe.
You've made it. He's
That's the only
finally
thing
made it.
about it I had in common.
Throwing up in the Yankee Stadium toilet. I mean, how many people get to do that?
Yeah, I mean it's unique. Well, probably not that unique. One more thing before we get to NFL, and is for the last, I can't even remember, but for the last 10, 15 years, the AL East has been the power elite division in baseball, always finishing as a division between 30 and 60 games above 500 combined. Um, Last year they were 60 over at the All-Star break and ended up like 31. They lost a lot of games. Now you mentioned the Rays and their stadium. They're not going to be a very good team this year.
Well, they shouldn't be, right?
No. I
Right.
mean, we've experienced, we know about playing away from your normal ballpark and the issues that come with it, the challenges for a manager and a coaching staff and the players. And I
Well, you
just,
got to get players to go there.
yeah, you got to get
Sure.
players.
Right.
So there's that. Um, there's the Orioles, whose rotation they're going to have to really bump because they were the most disappointing late season and postseason team in baseball.
2 years in a row.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
my books. So the Red Sox and Yankees, and then the Jays. How would you handicap going in at this point before anything happens free agent wise, really? The possibility that the AL East will lose its dominance.
Well, I think it kind of has, but I mean, it's a quick path to regaining it too. When the Red Sox decide to be the Red Sox and not worry about, how much profit is coming through the door, that can change in a quick hurry, right? Baltimore will be good. Like, let's not kid ourselves. They'll have an offense that'll carry the day to a lot of wins. Um, and the Yankees are going to find a way to be relevant. So they're going to be, but you're right. I mean, Tampa's probably not going to be good, and I'm not confident in Toronto at any like right now. How can you be? They've got a lot of work to do, and frankly, I don't know if they've got the funds to do everything they need to do. So, right, I mean, what can you count on right now? I think Baltimore's a good team, and I think the Yankees will be obviously a decent squad. Outside of that, it can go either way, like you saw at the
Yeah.
end of last year. Even the Yankees lost a lot of games,
Yeah.
and at the end, you know what I mean? They weren't the same squad coming
So I
down.
mean, if you go with John Schneider's evaluation that the bullpen cost him 10 games last year, which he said that in a moment of candor. I'm sure he might want to take that back because
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
putting
and
a
that's
lot of emphasis on the
testament.
bullpen.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's 74 win team. If they improve the bullpen and get to where they need to be bullpen wise, you're looking at 84, and then playing in a division that's not quite as strong as it was. What do you think the odds are with just jumping from a 74 win team back into wild card contention, given those factors? The
Well,
division,
wild card contention is very possible because
yeah,
I mean everybody's in wild card contention for the most part. So it's not going to take much to be in contention. To be a good baseball team, that's a different
yeah.
story. I think
Well,
I
that's
think
a good contrast. I like that
yeah,
right there.
I
Wild card
think it's an uphill
contention and a
climb
good
for them.
baseball team are different.
100%. I mean, geez, most teams are in contention. There's not
Yeah,
many that are just bad and out of it right out of the chute, right? I mean, the White Sox,
yeah,
like you got to be pretty bad to not be in contention. So, yeah, a path there. The only thing I think people have to be, you have to be very, very careful with you don't get the 74 wins. Like those aren't in the bank. You don't build from there
yeah,
and go, oh, if we add a bullpen, we get to 84. No, 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 no. You got to start again at zero. Like things can go bad again that you didn't
yeah.
anticipate.
I
Vladdy
think
could have a down year. Like it doesn't work that way.
I think one of the huge questions, and everybody's just praising Bowden Francis and his progress is
There you go. There's another one.
there's a guy that you're counting on as your fourth starter, and he was great down the stretch.
Sure was.
What if that doesn't happen? And we've seen a lot of times where the same guy comes back and like look at Alek Manoah and what happened to him.
Well, what's the old story, right? Don't trust what you see in spring training or in September. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like Now, is there reason to think Bowden Francis turned a corner? Sure, he added a pitch. He
Right.
added a pitch, but go through the league again with that pitch.
Yeah.
It's not a knuckleball. It's a
Yeah.
lot of people throw that pitch.
There's a bunch
So,
of there's a bunch of nerds right now looking at that, looking at the video and going, "Oh, next when we see him next year, be ready for this in this situation," and and then
right,
see what
right.
happens.
So you've got, yeah, counting on him. I mean, I, I get
I
why you
love the
would do
guy,
that.
but
Oh, sure, but
yeah,
I wouldn't want him to be my four and like he's locked in. Like
yeah.
you just he
Well, that's
needs to
why
be
they're
a
talking
bonus
about
four.
yeah, that's why they're talking about going out and signing a veteran, and I
Have to.
believe it won't be Corbin Burns or anyone in that category, but it'll be somebody usable and somebody for a 2 year plus an
By the
option
way,
deal.
how about the deal Matt Boyd got?
Yeah.
Lord have mercy, because I love Matt Boyd and I thought he'd be a great ad for that team. And I'm like, what are they
Yeah.
thinking? Like I think you mentioned if the Tigers got knocked out, Matt Boyd's not getting that
Yeah.
contract.
Absolutely. He'd be an invite if they had not gone to the postseason and gone as far as they did in the postseason, he would be an invite to someone's spring training on a minor
It's
league
$30
deal.
million, Griff.
Yeah.
Like I fell over when I saw that, and good for him, man. Like
Yeah. Another guy I like.
I love pitchers.
Yeah.
Like that's why I loved watching Ryu and those. Like I love, and he's a pitcher's pitcher because he can't break a pane of glass.
You're right.
But man, like, hey, I just that's just one of those contracts. That's 2 years, but
Yeah.
it threw me for a loop.
Well,
I
two
wouldn't be
years
giving him
is
that.
what to me, 2 years is what the Jays would be looking for, and maybe throw in an option year because they need to do that with
Sure.
term rather than
Yeah.
to compete. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure they would love to sign Corbin Burns. I'm sure they're talking to all those high end guys.
Yeah.
But I
They
think
should
this
be.
team with Bassett, Barrios, and Gosman, with Bowden Francis doing what he's done, if they could get a fifth guy that is a veteran that has a proven track record and is not long term, I think that would be the best. That would be ideal, and fans should not be upset if that happens.
I think it's the quickest path to relevancy again for them is adding, even though that's, if you look at what they need, that's, you think they don't need pitching because they've had generally decent pitching. Um, but man, you get another good starter in there, that's a lot of wins you could just
Yeah.
pencil in right away. I mean, it's harder to add all those bats because of the volume of bats they need, not because you can't get one, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. All right. It's time for the NFL predictions for next for this coming.
Everybody's waiting for this.
Mal was 1-2 and is now 10-11 for the
Yep.
season. Griff was 2-1 and is now 13-8 and on
I'm
a
I'm just
heater.
I'm just the coin flipper, Griff.
So
Not like you.
we'll go with your first one and then I'll bounce back with mine. And we've gone head to head twice and we've
I need
split.
my glasses on for this one. I
Yeah.
gotta see with that. All right. My first one is the Atlanta Falcons getting 5.5 in Minnesota. Um, I know Kirk Cousins has been awful. He may even be hurt, but for me, I think he's good. There's a lot to prove there, and I think you're going to get his A game, unless he gets benched for Michael Penix.
Yeah.
But I'm expecting a real dandy of a football game in Minnesota, so I'm going to take the points in that one. So that's where I'm going with my first pick.
I, for some strange reason, I'm going Giants plus 4.5 against the Saints at home.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I just like their quarterback who they've stumbled upon. He's like must be a third stringer, right? Locke.
Well, he was actually their backup, but they played
Well,
they
they
played the Italian because they were
go.
trying to lose, and
Right.
now he's hurt. So
I like them getting 4.5. The Saints to me aren't a mortal lock on the road. Um,
they're not
and so that's my first pick. I like getting 4.5 points more than the field goal.
like that. Okay, that's it's going out there. That's a good choice. My second one is going to be, and I'm not usually a chalk guy, but Pittsburgh Steelers. -6.5 at home to Cleveland. I know Jameson threw for God's fault apparently the other night, but I think the Steelers are kind of rolling, um, and I just think they're going to handle business at home and lay the wood down, so to speak. So Winston throws it all over the place. Sometimes it goes in the right hands and sometimes it doesn't. So um, TJ Watt's going to be all over the place. So I'll take the Steelers.
You don't think that, well, they did beat them a couple weeks ago, right? I mean,
Yeah,
and so this is like a revenge game. I could see that happening. I like that. I mean, I didn't take it, but I like it. Here's one. I like the Chargers +4 against the Chiefs.
I love that. Actually, I didn't take it, but
Yeah, I just think that the Chargers with Harbaugh, no big moments when they arrive and going to Kansas City and trying to be a playoff team and trying to show such remarkable progress with a quarterback who's playing like he should be playing.
right.
I think that they can keep it close and it'll probably be a last second either way, last drive, field goal, and that'll be the difference. And hopefully the Chargers win, but even if they lose by a field goal, getting 4 is what I like.
I think if there's a blowout in this game, I think it's the Chargers blowing out the Chiefs, not the other way around. Like if, you know what I mean? Like that's they're a solid team. They're well coached, obviously.
Yeah, and the football gods are going to make it so that the Bills have a chance for home field advantage. And to do that, you're going to have the Chiefs lose to somebody, and this could be the game.
Yeah. No, the Bills could lose too.
Yeah.
If
Well,
they're in L.
all right.
But correct. Correct. I think there's more losses coming. My last one is going to be the Miami Dolphins, -5.5 versus the New York Football Jets. Um, Miami's been sneaky good for a little while, and the Jets have been not sneaky bad, just bad. Um, I thought this one might touch 7, and it hasn't. So I'm expecting a blowout here. Quick,
Yeah.
and I think the Jets, if you get them down early, you can sense that you know they just might lay down a little bit and let the clock run, so to speak. That's what I'm hoping for. So I'm going to take the Dolphins here to get themselves back in the race a little bit too.
That was under consideration on my list. My third one, my final one, is going to be the Bears +4 against the 49ers in San Jose or wherever the hell it is.
Right.
Because I think the Bears are a better team than they've showed. They've had some really bad coaching decisions that cost them games, but the Niners are reeling. I mean,
Oof.
maybe we're finding out why Mr. Irrelevant was the last pick in the draft
Right. They
because
weren't even in that game in Buffalo. They
he
weren't
doesn't
even in
have
the
all
game.
those weapons that he did when he broke in. And like you look at some of the Jimmy Garoppolo, you look at some of those guys, maybe it's the system and the players around those guys that made them even remotely good.
I mean, in fairness, they have a billion injuries too.
Yeah, well,
But
that's
yeah,
why
yeah.
I'm kicking them when they're down. I'm taking the Bears +4, you know?
You're looking for the weak one.
Oh yeah.
Give him a little kick. There
Yeah,
you go.
right.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
like it.
yeah, so that's that. Good luck. This. What about the Bills? You like? Are they off this week?
No, they're in LA. The Rams.
Oh yeah,
And
you like them this
yeah,
week?
that
Yeah,
is not an easy game. And then they go to Detroit.
those are your boys. That Detroit game could be
It'll
a Super
be
Bowl preview, right?
yeah, it'll be fun viewing, that's for
Mm.
sure. I wish I'd have had the thought to get a ticket for that, but I did not. So not
Anyway,
exactly.
we're pretty much done, and we've got the winter meetings, and we will be back next Thursday. So you'll probably be listening on Friday morning. But the winter
Now
meeting,
let me ask you a question.
yeah.
Soto signed by then?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about next week. But
All
I
right.
think he will be because we talked about it before, and the feeling is, what's our feeling on that? Explain that with Boris and the signing and
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be much reason to wait because, outside of the Blue Jays, you got the three suitors. And I think, like I said, and I don't think it doesn't, the market's, he's separate from the market other than changing what direction you're going to go if you lose out on him. There's no reason to wait. And I think with Boris, like you've mentioned too, he likes to shine in the spotlight. So what better spotlight when he's doing his thing around the Christmas tree to do that, and then also announce a Juan Soto signing, and look at me, which hey, I
Yeah.
get it. So
Plus,
why wait,
yeah.
right?
There's the
Why
there's
wait?
there's the physics aspect of the equal and opposite reaction. And last year's action of all of his clients having to wait until February produces a opposite reaction where now he wants to set the market, be the first to do it. And to be honest, there's no Soto's not setting the bar for anyone else. He's
Nobody,
like Otani. He is the bar, and everyone's well below it. So there's no reason, and he has to loosen the market for his other clients and for all the other clients
right?
out there.
Right.
So that's what we're predicting. We'll be talking about the Soto contract next week when we return on exit philosophy. And so stay tuned this week. Pay attention to the winter meetings. They end on Wednesday, technically end on Thursday, but they'll end on Wednesday with the rule.
Yeah.
And Mike Muroff will be available to talk to our media as
We'll have a new Blue Jay. There'll
yeah.
be a 40th man on the
Oh
roster.
yeah, definitely. They're leaving a roster spot open
Right.
so they can take a strong arm, 97 mile an hour scatter arm guy that they can give to
Nuke
people out
Lelouch.
there and say
Nuke
he's the
Lelouch. Yeah,
yeah, right.
absolutely.
Anyway, thanks, Mal, and thanks
Yeah.
everyone for listening. And if you want to catch up on Griff's mailbag and all the columns that I've written and previous exit philosophies, go to griffsthepitch.com. Otherwise, we'll be back at you next week. Thanks, Mal.
See ya.